So very often when a Fusion has their first concert, they make a couple of basic mistakes when they set up the stage. And it's very understandable why they do this, because when you go to a normal concert, there is a normal way of seeing the stage. Normally, you'd have the drums at the back here in the middle, and the guitars either side, and then the soloists at the front. That is natural. That's how people usually set up their stages. But in Fusion, we set up our stage slightly different. And the reason why is these microphones here. So these are condensator microphones. It's a large diaphragm, small diaphragm, and they pick up sound from all the way around, which means that if you put your drum kit behind your choir or next to your choir, these microphones will pick up your drum kit and they won't pick up your choir, because they take the sound that's loudest, not the sound that's necessarily in front of them. So on a Fusion stage, it's really important to keep the drums as far away from the choir as possible. So this means that we have the drums at the front of the stage and the choir at the back of the stage. Now the microphones will still pick up some of the drums, but not nearly as much as they would pick up if the drum kit was here. So another advantage of putting the drums at the front of the stage is that the drummer actually, he sits down. So he's lower than the people who are standing behind him, who are the guitarists, which means that you get to see everyone. If the guitars were standing in front of the drums, you wouldn't actually see the drummer. So we put the drums at the front of the stage, not only for the best possible sound, but also for the best picture and so that everyone can be seen. And the keyboard, that can go pretty much anywhere. We like to put our keyboard in the middle of the stage because sometimes before a new song, we like to get the tone of the new song. And so it's really easy just to reach over and get that tone. And of course, the keyboard player could be stood or sitting. It really depends on what you feel like. One other thing that's really important about your stage is that you keep it neat and tidy. It means that you should try and keep your main stage area where people are going to be walking and dancing free from cables. So what you can do, or what you should do actually, is create cable runs. So you have the cables following each other towards where they end, and as much as possible you should also duct tape down the cables. The main reason why we do this is that so no one trips over the cables. That's kind of important. Now when you have your Fusion concert, it's important that your soloists and your choir and band can hear what they're playing. So we need stage monitors. Sometimes you'd have 2 or 3 different channels. At this festival we have 6 channels for stage monitors. It's more usual to have 3 or 4. One thing that's really important about stage monitors is that as much as possible they're pointing away from the choir, because again the choir microphones will pick up the noise from the stage monitors. And so you can see here that the keyboard stage monitor is facing away from the choir, not towards the choir. One other crucial thing is that no matter how much your choir asks to have their own voices in their own stage monitors, you cannot put the choir microphones in the choir stage monitors. The reason why is that you'll create the thing called a feedback loop, a piercing sound that'll be very unpleasant for your audience and for your choir. So it's just important, if the choir can't hear themselves, you need to either turn down the band or teach them to sing louder. Now keeping the band turned down is very, very important. In a normal rock band, the guitar amps, the bass amp and the drums are really, really loud. It's the energy, you're creating the energy of the concert. But again, because of these choir microphones, you need to keep the stage volume of the guitars down low. And that happens really during your rehearsals. If you can teach your band to play quietly during rehearsals, you'll have no problems when it comes to making a great sounding concert on a main stage. And the other great advantage of teaching your band to play quietly is that you give the sound engineer full control over what the audience can hear, because he can mix the concert 100% based on what's coming out of the main front of house speakers and not what's coming out of the band monitors as well, or the band speakers. We've got a big bass combo here. It looks very, very good, but we need to keep the volume low so that the sound engineer can decide how much bass guitar goes into the final mix. Another thing to bear in mind is that the stage should look as clean as possible from the point of view of the audience as well. It means that as much as possible the audience should not see piles of cables behind monitors. If you have extra cabling, you should put it in front of the monitor where the choir can see it, but not where the audience can see it. And also you can see here we have extra cable that we didn't need for this microphone. And so we've coiled the extra cable underneath the cable stand. That keeps it out of the way of the choir, but it also looks neat and tidy for the audience. A fusion concert could use up to 500 meters of cabling. That's a lot of cabling that you need to keep neat and tidy. And if you don't keep it neat and tidy, there's a chance that you can create a big mess and a lot of knots. The place where you're most likely to have problems is here at the multi-cable. Now, when we're connecting the microphones to the multi-cable, some people are tempted to start at the microphone and finish at the multi-cable. If you did that, what will happen is that you'll have some microphone cable left over, and it would all end up here. Now, if we do that with one cable, it doesn't look so bad. But if you have 30 cables, kind of here by the multi-cable, you end up with a big mess. So it's really, really important that you first put your cable into the multi-cable and then take it to the microphone on the stage where you're going to finish up. And if you have any cable left behind, you can leave it in a coil underneath the stand where the microphone is. That'll keep the stage tidy, and it means that if you need to change something here, you're not going to be fighting through layers and layers of cables. Adding lights to your concerts can be a great way to add a dramatic effect, and you have great photographs as well. But one thing that's really important is that the light cables and the sound cables don't mix. If they run side by side each other, you end up with a buzz in your sound system, and that's not very nice. So it's really important to keep your light and sound cables as far apart from each other as possible. For this reason, we've actually taped our lighting cables to the underside of the stage, and our sound cables are on the ground to keep them away from each other. It's also really important that you use a different electric phase for your lights as well. So once again, it's important to keep your stage neat and tidy, and that starts with the cable runs. As you can see here, we've put all of our cables from the multi-cable onto the stage together, and we've duct taped them over to make sure that they stay there and no one trips over them. There's no cables anywhere where someone would be standing to play their instrument. Anywhere where someone might be standing or jumping around is cable-free. Now, because we're here at the Fusion Festival and we have quite a large sound system, we've mic'd up every part of the drum kit. It's actually 9 microphones on a drum kit right now. But for most normal Fusion concerts, it's probably going to be enough just to mic your kick drum, your snare drum, and one microphone over the cymbals and the hi-hats. That's more than enough to start off with. And then as you get a bigger sound system, you can then start adding more and more of these microphones. But oftentimes, in a small room or in a very reverberant gym, we probably wouldn't even have these microphones turned on. They're actually there for effect, to make it look cool. So to keep the stage as quiet as possible, don't be afraid to turn down your guitar amps. If your guitarists can't hear themselves, you can put more volume into their monitors. The monitors are facing away from the audience and away from the choir. But these amplifiers here that are facing towards the audience and some towards the choir microphones, they should be down as quietly as possible while still getting a good tone for the microphones. In this concert, we're using wireless microphones. There's no cable attached to the microphone for the soloists. If we were using cables, you might be tempted to run the cable right across the stage to the choir microphones. If you do that, the microphone cable could be running to here where the soloist would stand on it or where the dance group might stand on it. So it's far better to run the microphone around towards the drum kit and to the front of the stage where there's no danger of anybody standing on the microphone cable.